Thank you, David. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to try to represent the stories and the voices of dozens of patrons and organizations that make up this definition that we have of community. And what community is to us, as we came to understand it in our process, was really the core group of people who run the library and who work within the library system. B, the CBOs, the community-based organizations, who are throughout the community, but also participating in what the library has to offer. And then finally, the patrons of the library. And all of these three work together in a very synergistic way to create the dynamics of the library. So we adopted the Eastern Parkway branch in Crown Heights. And I would like to shout out to, I know she's not here, but Kimberly Tobler, who's the director there, was awesome. She was a rock star. And Tiffany, if you're still here, you guys are all rock stars. What you do at the libraries are incredible. And we learned so much from, yeah. We learned so much from you, so I just want to say thanks. So what was our goal in this whole process, which I'll go through? To help the libraries to develop a process to better engage and connect with its patrons and assess its needs. But what it wasn't was we weren't trying to get to an end. We were not trying to get to a specific design solution. So there's nothing here that posits a design or a design solution. We were after a process. But during that process, we learned so much more. And what we learned during that process is really what made up our key findings. So to start, we internally, in working with the library and with the center, really thought about a process that would build on itself in terms of how we would engage with the users of the library. And we started very similar to some of the presentations that you saw before, a little bit of demographic mapping, a little bit of asset mapping, some user intercepts where we went in and talked to some of the users of the library on a sort of random basis, just to anchor ourselves in what we were doing. So the first group of people that we met with were the branch library staff. And through those meetings, and we'll talk a little bit about that, we came away with some key takeaways. Those takeaways then informed the next meeting, which was the library staff plus the CBOs together in a facilitated discussion, had some takeaways from that. And then the third was the branch library staff, the CBOs, and in a very public forum invited some of the community stakeholders and library users. So that, in a nutshell, was how we organized the process. So the first session we held at the library, and again, it was primarily with the library staff and with BPL staff, and it was in a facilitated roundtable sort of forum. And so we asked a sort of key set of questions to these individuals. So these were all the titles of the people who were in our first meeting. And we centered our questions mostly on questions about neighborhood, connectivity, your users, how do you attract users, and what are their needs and values. And we tried to keep the subject on point. And so these are just some of the quotes that came out of that first session. The library should be a learning center for any age or any interest, and we learned during that process that there are at least 5 languages spoken in the community, and each of those language speakers have very specific demands on what they want out of the library. It's a huge challenge. As librarians, we know our community and work to meet its diverse needs, and that's from even the most complex needs to the simple needs of working mothers who have no place to drop their children off, and how the security guard actually works sometimes as a de facto babysitter, but they relish that opportunity and they engage with the community in that way. The library is neutral, dignified, and democratic, and had some very interesting, one of the earlier presentations talked about homelessness. And we had a very interesting and revealing conversation about the perception of homelessness in the Crown Heights community, the issues of dignity and issues of access, and how it really needs to reach into all of those different users, and how the library really can be a change agent in the community. So what we didn't expect, our key takeaway here, was that just by standing back and listening to people in a room who hadn't really had a venue or an opportunity to speak to each other, they connected with each other and became an even more cohesive group than they were before, because it wasn't like a staff meeting. This was a more visionary meeting. So our big takeaway was, you put these people in a room together and you talk about high-level issues that impact them at their heart, and you get some very good connectivity. So session 2, as I mentioned, we started to include some of the CBOs, and the process of even identifying the CBOs, we went on to Google Maps. David Giles was incredibly instrumental in really drilling down into who's in the community, then reaching out to them and trying to get them into a meeting. And we learned a lot just by the process of identifying and bringing those people into a meeting. But these are some of the folks who came to the second meeting. And again, we talked a lot about the neighborhood, the library's purpose, its partnerships. Partnerships became a huge issue and a huge topic of discussion. That again, access to information means opportunity, and both from the perspective of the CBOs and from the perspective of the library. It's a depository and for local resources and a hub to engage with them. That we were throwing around ideas about the library being a space where the community can celebrate its successes, whether it's a business success or an art opening. But the idea that it really is a place that speaks to the passion and the needs of the community. We also talked a lot about the library as a cultural touchstone platform for community leaders to engage with the community. We had a representative from Community Board 8 talking about a lot of things that they did as a community board, but a lot of the CBOs didn't even realize that some of the resources that were available through CB8. So the library actually, in this instance, was kind of the mediator where all of those community stakeholders came together and learned about each other. And then on even things like tutoring, where the library has more students coming in for tutoring than they can handle, but the Mediation Center trains tutors and can't find students. So the idea of reaching out to the community and finding where those synergies exist was something that was really revealed to us. And so what we didn't expect in that process was the depth of neighborhood and really the potential synergies that existed, whether it's tutoring or ESOL instruction or homelessness advocacy. There was a whole host of things that we just didn't expect as part of the process. In the third session, which was less of a facilitated visioning session and more of a facilitated work group, we had almost 50 people, and they really represented a mix of the libraries, the CBOs, and the patrons. And so we had to do something a little bit different to manage a group that size and that diverse. So we sort of invented a game, and we put groups of 5 people at tables. We tried to mix up the tables. And and again, these were some of the folks who came to the presentation, to the workshop. And we gave them these 11 issues to ponder and to talk amongst themselves. And what we gave them about 40 minutes, and at the end, they had to rank them. They had to say, which do you think are the most important issues facing the library in your community today? We then took the results of that and came up with these sort of collective ideas that were the consensus of the group. And I won't go into some of the further action items, but we asked them for near-term and far-term actionable items. But these 5 ideas were the things that rose to the fore for most. So the library as the hub of the community, that partnerships do strengthen the library reflects the needs of the neighborhood, this idea of service awareness and a PR campaign and getting the word out about what the library actually does. There's a huge kind of stop where the library knows what it does, but the community, and this was revealed even in some of our user intercepts, that a lot of the community doesn't even know what the library has to offer. And then, of course, as been talked about before, technology plays a huge role in where the library will be going in the future. Tremendous demand on computers for everything from job applications to people who don't have access to computers at home. And so what we didn't expect here was this idea of co-creation and consensus building amongst all of the stakeholders, and how this really leads to a sense of ownership amongst the entire group. And this can be a really great kind of front-end activity to anything, any work, any thinking that is going to impact the library. So just some in conclusion, what we think the branch library should consider, the branches and libraries should consider as part of we'll call it a startup process. When you start a design process, it seems like these are the kinds of activities that you should be having before you come up with design solutions. This is the kind of research that should be done in communities. So, connect the library staff with each other through these structured dialogues. Identify the community synergies, local stakeholders, and not only do you identify those synergies, but find ways that those can continue into the future. So, can CAMBA or can the Mediation Center have an ongoing role with the library and vice versa? Engaging the local CBOs and leaders. The library really needs to engage or to embrace its role as the hub of the community. I think that there's a huge responsibility that I know that the libraries do feel, but they need to embrace that role. And then finally, to co-create goals and programs that will enrich the library mission and then get the word out. So those are really the key takeaways, and thank you very much.